we go?
Thanks very much.
Sure. Okay. Okay, everybody's organised? Good, thank you. I have decided that at 10 a.m. Monday morning a ballot for the Labor leadership will be conducted. Following Kevin Rudd's resignation yesterday, I have formed this view that we need a leadership ballot in order to settle this question once and for all. I believe it is in the interests of the Labor Party that it be determined once and for all, but much more importantly, I believe it is in the interests of the Australian nation. For far too long we have seen squabbling within the Labor Party, which has obscured the government's achievements and what we are doing to build a stronger and fairer Australia for the future. In recent days, I believe that this has moved to a distraction from governing itself. That's not good enough. Australians are rightly sick of this and they want it brought to an end. Only Labor can provide the vision that this country needs for our future, and Labor can only provide it if we resolve this issue once and for all and proceed with unity and determination. When the ballot is called at 10 a.m. on Monday morning, I will re-nominate for the Labor leadership, and I expect to receive the support of my colleagues when I do so. But let me be very clear about this. If, against my expectation, I do not receive the support of my colleagues, then I will go to the backbench and I will renounce any further ambition for the Labor leadership. This would be in the best interests of the government and the nation. I anticipate that Mr Rudd will also be a candidate in this ballot. I ask him to give the same undertaking, that if he does not succeed in this ballot, that he will go to the backbench and renounce any further claims to the leadership and act in the interests of the Australian Labor Party and of our nation. In the past 18 months, under my leadership, the government has secured some major reforms which will make us a stronger and fairer nation in the future. It will make us ready for the future. In these reforms, I'm thinking of the reform we have introduced to put a price on carbon and to seize a clean energy future for us. A reform that I have delivered in this minority government parliament. A reform that was not possible prior to my leadership, despite the support of the then Leader of the Opposition for a price on carbon, and despite the same Leader of the Greens being in the federal parliament. Under my leadership, we have also enacted a minerals resource rent tax to better share the mineral wealth within our grounds and to back in important changes like more superannuation for Australian workers and better arrangements to support small business. When I became leader of the Labor Party, this reform was the subject of a vicious national debate and there was no prospect that it was going to be secured. Thirdly, under my leadership, we have secured an historic health agreement right around the nation that is meaning more doctors, more nurses and more local control of hospitals. It's meaning less emergency department waiting time. It's meaning better access to elective surgery. When I became Prime Minister, there was an agreement which did not extend to every corner of the nation and which was being picked apart by premiers and was not going to stand the test of time. Under my leadership too, we have secured the structural separation of Telstra, what we needed to do in order to back in the rollout of the national broadband network. This was a reform not attempted before I came to the Prime Ministership, but a vital reform for the nation's future. In addition, under my leadership, we have secured the means testing of the private health insurance rebate, a fairness measure, fairer to low and middle income earners who are no longer going to be asked to subsidise the private health insurance of those who earn so much more than they do. Once again, prior to me becoming Prime Minister, this reform had been attempted, but it had not been secured. In this minority parliament, I have secured it. And of course, as Prime Minister, I have continued to roll out the education reforms that I designed, and we are in the process of adding to them, because there is nothing more important to our nation's future than making sure that every child goes to a great school and gets a great education. At the same time, as we have done all of this, under my leadership, we have ensured that low-income workers get a fairer tax deal. We have taken the steps necessary to get the budget on the track back to surplus, and we will deliver that surplus in 2012-13. And we have continued to manage the Australian economy so that it is strong and offers Australians the benefit of jobs. Jobs today, whilst we build the new economy we will need for the jobs of tomorrow. Now, no government is perfect, and I have made mistakes over the past 18 months, I acknowledge that. But ultimately, the measure of a government is what the government achieves for the Australian people, what meaningful change and meaningful reforms are delivered. The measure of a government is not by opinion polls or daily headlines in newspapers. I believe that the driving purpose of a Labor government is to make sure our nation is stronger and fairer in the future than it is today. Achieving that vision requires us to make all of the right choices today, to manage the economy in the interests of working people, whilst we make the right choices to build for the future, so that in that future people will have the opportunity to get a job, get a better job, start their own small business if they choose to. Families will have the security that they need to nurture their children and to know that they will have a great future. That is the driving purpose and ambition of a Labor government, to meet the needs of working people today and tomorrow. Ultimately, under my leadership, I believe we have been securing the big reforms that will make us stronger and fairer. But we've got so much more work to do building on those reforms, so much more work to do to make sure that every child does go to that great school, which is why we are now pursuing the work flowing from the major review of school funding and new proposals to empower school principals so that they can run their schools knowing that they can give every child a great education. The reforms we still have to pursue to make sure that Australian adults have the skills they need to get the job they want, which is why I am taking a major skills reform package to COAG in April. The reforms that we need as a nation to make sure that in this time of structural adjustment and change, we continue to be a nation that has got the benefit of a diversified economy, that we don't just have one source of strength, the resources boom, but we have many sources of strength, including the manufacturing sector, tourism, international education and a services economy. We've got more to do to make sure that Australians who live a life with a disability, or the people who care for those Australians with that disability, get a fair go and a fair chance. We've got more to do to make sure, as our society ages, that we are supporting older Australians and giving them the choices and options they need and deserve. It's my intention to seek the support of my Labor colleagues to make sure that I can continue to pursue this reform agenda as Prime Minister. Meaningful reforms that will have an impact on Australian families and better support them in their lives and better give them economic opportunities for the future. Now, I note that Kevin Rudd, in his media statements yesterday and today, has very consistently referred to the need to defeat Tony Abbott at the next election. I want to be clear about this too. I believe that we can win the next election and defeat Tony Abbott. I believe I can lead Labor to that victory, provided that the Labor Party unites and we get on with the job. But I also want to be very clear about this. Government is about more than electioneering. Government is about having the courage to get the big reforms done. Government is about making sure that each and every day you have the discipline and the method necessary to get the huge volume of work done that government needs to do. Government is about having the personal strength in adversity to still ensure that you stay focused and you get your job done. I believe I have demonstrated those attributes as Prime Minister: the courage on the big reforms, the discipline and method to make every day count, the personal sense of strength which means that I can always keep going no matter how adverse the circumstances. In this Labor leadership ballot, I will be saying to my colleagues that we need to come together and to keep working in the interests of the Australian people each and every day, delivering the big reforms that are always the hallmarks of Labor governments. I'm very happy to take your questions. We'll do it one at a time, yes.
Colleagues have been vociferous about Kevin Rudd, including your deputy. Do you still maintain he led a good government and simply lost its way?
Well, on the question of 2010 and the past, I would like to say something about that. My focus is on the future, not on the past, but let me just say some things about 2010. I determined that I would contest the Prime Ministership in circumstances where the government that Kevin Rudd had led had entered a period of paralysis. Kevin Rudd, as Prime Minister, always had very difficult and very chaotic work patterns. In my view, Kevin Rudd is an excellent campaigner, and he was an excellent campaigner in 2007. Indeed, a remarkable campaigner in 2007. But government requires different skills. Government requires consistency, purpose, method, discipline, inclusion, consultation. It requires you to lead a big team and to lead it well. Kevin Rudd, as Prime Minister, struggled to do that, and by the days of 2010 that struggle had resulted in paralysis in the government. In those circumstances, I did ask Kevin Rudd for a leadership ballot, and in that leadership ballot Kevin Rudd assessed he had so little support that he did not choose to contest it. That is, the people who knew him best and knew the most about his Prime Ministership had determined that he no longer had their support. That's what motivated me in 2010. It was about the interests of the nation and providing good government. Out of respect to Kevin Rudd at that time, I didn't canvass every detail. I used the terminology that the government had lost its way. And clearly, with that level of paralysis, the government had lost its way. As Prime Minister, I've worked very hard indeed to make sure that we govern with discipline and method, and that is what I do as Prime Minister, and that is what I will seek to have the support of my colleagues to continue to do. Yes.
Graham Richardson this morning has said that this has now got vicious and the wounds are deep and will last for a long time. That must be concerning to you. Is it vicious?
There is a challenge here for Labor to have the leadership ballot on Monday and to unite after Monday. And certainly my message to my colleagues will be that we do need to unite after Monday and get on with the job that Australians expect us to do. And that job is about governing for them each and every day. Yes, of course, political parties campaign and political parties electioneer, and I've played my fair part and my fair share in electioneering and election campaigns, but the focus of government has to be on delivering each and every day, and that will be my message to my colleagues. In terms of, and I'll just finish answering the question, in terms of the Labor Party coming together, I think it is very important that the leadership ballot that is on Monday ends this once and for all, which is why I am prepared to say that if I am not successful in that leadership ballot, then I will go to the backbench and renounce any further ambition to the Labor leadership. I expect to win, but if against my expectations I lose, that is my commitment. Kevin Rudd should give a comparable commitment.
How long has Kevin Rudd been undermining your leadership? Do you agree with the comments made by Wayne Swan last night that went all the way back to that election?
Well, let me say this. Over many months now, there have been rumours of destabilisation of my leadership by Kevin Rudd. On each and every occasion, I have preferred to think the best of Kevin Rudd and think the best of his conduct. However, it is now evident to me, and I think it is evident to the Australian people, that there has been a long-running destabilisation campaign here to get to this point where Kevin Rudd is clearly going to announce that he wants to seek the Labor leadership. Now, I don't seek to dwell on that because our purpose, my purpose, the Labor Party purpose, is about serving the nation's interests. And I've called the leadership ballot because I believe it is in the interests of the nation to get this resolved.